Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Persistence Outdoors podcast. Thanks for choosing to tune in. Maybe you're on your way to work or doing some chores or at the gym. Whatever you're doing, I'm excited to talk hunting with you guys today. And I think that what we're talking about, if you don't do it already, is likely to make you more successful this hunting season. When people think of hunting, they often associate it with early mornings. And that makes sense because a lot of the times when people like to hunt, say maybe during the deer rut, hunting in those early mornings is a good time to hunt. Or maybe you're hunting turkeys and trying to kill turkeys right as they get off the roost. Or maybe you're duck hunting and you want to go out and get that first flight of ducks. So there's a lot of hunting to be done in the early mornings. But what about hunting evenings? Well, hunting in the evening can be highly productive as well. And I think that hunting in the evenings should be a major part of your overall hunting strategy. And that's what we're going to talk about today. When I first started hunting on my own, I was very hesitant to hunt in the evenings. I would have a Saturday off, let's say, and I would go out and I'd go in the very early mornings. And I would get in before daylight. And if I didn't see anything in the morning, I might hunt throughout the day, throughout the midday. But when it came to evenings, I would usually bail out before the last 2 hours of light. Well, why was that? I was concerned for a couple of reasons. First of all, I was concerned about trying to recover an animal in the dark. When you shoot an animal, chances are they're going to run a ways even after you've shot them. Even if you've made a perfect double lung shot, usually animals don't just fall down right there. They'll still run a ways, especially deer. And so even after you've shot one, you may still need to blood trail it or find it after it's disappeared into some brush. So that made me nervous, and I was concerned about the prospect of losing a deer at night after I shot it and then not being able to take care of the meat. The second thing that bothered me was I was taking my deer to game processors at the time. And even if I had shot my deer and recovered it, it would still take me some time to field dress the animal and get it out of the woods. And at that time, the game processor near me closed around 8 p.m. So I, in my head, was just playing out the whole scenario, and I was thinking, okay, I shoot the animal, then I wait for a while and let it expire, then I need to go after it and recover it. That will take some time. Then I field dress it, then I either quarter it out or I drag it out, and then I get it back to my car, and then I drive to the processor, right? And at that time, it could be after the processor closed. And so I'm thinking, if I actually kill an animal now, I won't even be able to get it to the processor in time. And then I have to deal with a dead animal overnight. At the time, I didn't know how to store an animal. And I wasn't confident that I could take care of the meat properly. So I would get to maybe around 4:30 on those short, late fall days and call it quits. Well, fast forward to today, and I definitely hunt in the evenings. And I've found solutions for those problems that I'll talk about in a bit. Before that, though, I want to explain why you would want to hunt in the evenings in the first place. First of all, many game animals are active in the twilight hours, so the very early light and the very late fading light. We call that crepuscular, which just means active in twilight hours. Especially deer and elk tend to be crepuscular. One of the major strategies in hunting overall is to find animals while they're moving. And if you think about that, that makes sense. If an animal were to bed down in a forest or even a field with some brush and cover, it could take a very long time to ever find that animal, right? If we're looking through binoculars or we're just walking around and the animal is just still and is pretty well concealed, we might never see that animal. But as humans, we do have very good eyesight and we're able to see movement very well. We're able to catch movement. So the best times to hunt for us are when animals are moving. And that usually means that they're moving from their bedding areas to feeding areas or from feeding areas to bedding areas. They may also be moving for other reasons, but those are two of the most common patterns: bed to feed, feed to bed. So if many animals are crepuscular, it would make sense that the next most likely time for us to catch them moving, besides mornings, would be evenings. And because of this, evenings can be one of the most productive times of day to hunt. Now, the time of year and temperature can actually give you a hint as to whether animals will be more or less active in the evenings. So, for example, with white-tailed deer in the late summer, during the day it's very warm, and deer are more likely to bed down and stay out of the sun to stay comfortable. Then in the evenings, as the sun starts to go down, the deer will get back on their feet and go out to their feeding areas, and sometimes they'll feed all night and then go back to their bedding areas in the morning. When they're in this sort of pattern, the evening may be your best chance to catch a deer on its feet, depending on where you set up. Now, later in the season, if the temperature drops or there's a cold front, this might prompt the deer to spend a little bit more time feeding to keep their energy up and keep their body warmth up. In that scenario, they might end up feeding later into the morning and still be on their feet by the time the sun comes up, and that could be a very effective time to hunt them. Hunting in the evenings can also give you a slight advantage in heavily pressured areas. So in areas where there are lots and lots of hunters. This is because in the evenings, hunters are more likely to go home or pack it in a little bit early. Maybe they didn't bring a headlamp, or they don't think that they can find their way out of the woods in the dark. They're discouraged, they haven't seen a deer all day, or they just have the normal social pressures that are more common in the evening. If you're going to go hang out with people, it's more likely to be in the evening than in the early morning. So hunting in the evening can give you a slight edge over all these other hunters who are leaving the woods early, and that can be just enough to help you kill an animal. A couple other considerations for the evening are that even if you can't kill an animal, you can still spot animals for the next day or for the future. Say you're on an elk hunt and you spot an elk 2 miles away, but you only have 1 hour of shooting light left. Well, you're probably not going to be able to make a play on that elk, right? Or if you do, it's going to be real close. But you still know where it is, and you can come back and go after it in the morning. That's the same for any number of animals, right? That's the same for turkeys. That's the same for deer. That's the same for bears. It's still helpful to be out there at that time when they're moving so that you can see where they are. That could really change the course of your hunt. If you're out there and you haven't seen animals all day, but you decide to stick it out and keep glassing until the very evening, even if you see animals very far off, at least you know they're there, and you can then plan your strategy around an actual animal that you've seen instead of just guessing and trying to figure out where to go the next day. Lastly, if you're on a backpack hunt or you have a long pack out for an animal, the evening may be the best time for you to pack that animal out. Say you've killed an animal in the early season in the late morning. Well, the sun is still rising in the sky, and it might not be the best idea to put that meat on your back and then hike out while the sun's shining down and not allowing that meat to cool. A better idea might be to hang the meat in some shade or in a place where it can get some airflow, and then wait for the sun to run its course and start going down. And then as it's going down and the temperatures are dropping, you could then take your meat and ferry it back to your truck or wherever it needs to go in the cooler temperatures of the evening in the darkness instead of the warmer temperatures of the day. All right, so those are some of the reasons why you might want to hunt in the evening. And at this point, you might be saying, okay, you've convinced me, I want to hunt in the evening, but I still have all those problems that you talked about in the first place. How am I going to recover the animal? How am I going to get out of the woods? How am I going to get the animal to the processor on time? So let's talk about the solutions to those problems. When recovering animals in the dark, a very bright flashlight or headlamp is your best friend. With a very bright headlamp, you can see blood on the ground, and it's just a matter of following the blood trail until you reach the animal. It's not as easy as in the daylight, of course, but especially with a high-powered headlamp, something that has a wide beam, it's definitely doable, and after you do it once or twice, you'll become a lot more comfortable with it. It is helpful to have a buddy, and then you can leave one person at the last spot you see blood with a flashlight, and then have the other person go ahead with their flashlight looking for more blood. So as long as you're well equipped with a decent flashlight, you should be able to recover your animal. When trying to get out of the woods in the dark, it helps to have a downloaded map and a GPS app. So something like Onyx Hunt, where you can download a map of the area that you're going into and then have a GPS locator on your phone. Then even if it's dark and you're having a hard time making out landmarks, or if you're in thick country, you can look at your map and know exactly where you are. And that's going to help you a lot getting out of the woods, or even just finding the trail to get out of the woods in the dark. The last problem with hunting at night is, where do I put an animal if I can't get it to a processor in time? Well, you have a few options. First of all, you could quarter the deer. If you've never quartered a deer before, you might be surprised at how small they break down to. Once you've quartered the deer, you could bring the deer home, and if you clear a few racks in your fridge and push some food to the side, you might be able to fit that whole deer into your refrigerator. I've done it a couple times now, and it works out great. Once you have it in your fridge, you can really just treat it like any other meat you have. Then you can bring it to a processor, or you can process it yourself, which I would highly recommend learning to do. Another option is to get some big coolers. So again, you will quarter out the deer, and then you will put some ice in your cooler, put a layer of something in between the ice and the animal. So some cardboard would be really helpful to keep the deer off the ice, keep the meat dry, and then you put the deer meat on top, shut the cooler, and you're good to go for as long as your cooler and your ice stay cold. By the way, I keep saying deer because that's the example I'm thinking of, but really these methods will work for any animal you choose to hunt. A third option is to hang the animal overnight. If the temperatures in the evenings are getting down to less than 40 degrees, preferably above freezing, but less than 40 degrees, you can hang your animal outside for quite a while. Temperatures between 32 and 40 degrees are common refrigeration temperatures. So if you think about it that way, you can hang a deer in temperatures like that for even up to 2 weeks in some cases, and you'll be just fine and the meat won't spoil. So if the temperatures are cool enough or getting cool enough at night, you can hang that deer until you're ready to bring it to the processor or process it yourself. All right, well, those are my tips for hunting in the evenings, and I think that you'll find with a few easy adjustments, you will be able to hunt in the evenings confidently as well. Before I wrap up, I just want to leave you with a final piece of advice, and that is, don't just hunt in the evenings, but hunt until last light. I can't tell you how many animals I've spotted in the last hour of daylight, if not the last half hour. So keep hunting until you can't see through your binoculars anymore. That's all I've got for this week. Until next week, hunt hard, hunt the evenings, and I think you'll find success.